Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulihil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our weekly webinar. And for those who had attended the previous week, we will know that we were looking at some of the common objections related to the argument from design. Now, I don't plan to go through all of the arguments, but just so that you recall the structure of the argument, the structure of the teleological or the argument from design is based on the following propositions. Firstly, the first proposition is that the universe we see and live in is masterfully made and consummate. The signs of care and providence therein are apparent. Secondly, the second proposition, this consummate mastery suggests that there is a wise, omniscient doer who created it in this manner. And then the conclusion, Allah is the wise, omniscient creator who created the universe. I would also request everyone just to make sure that their mics are switched off so that it doesn't have an interference in the presentation. Jazakallah khair. So what we had done is we had looked at each of the propositions and then looked at the different types of objections that have been made against the different propositions. So if you recall, there was the first objection, whether the claim was whether there is even any mastery within the universe, or is it just us projecting a claim by claiming that there is some mastery. And we looked at all of the different ways that argument is presented and how best we can respond to it. The second one that we looked at was the claim about the fallacy regarding fine-tuning and whether there was any sort of fine-tuning of the universe. And here we presented the statements of many scientists, including some who are atheists, who recognize the precision and the mastery of the universe and the fine-tuning. And then we looked at some of the people who've tried to object to it, primarily being an individual known as Victor Stenger, who in his book, The Fallacy of Fine-Tuning, presents certain arguments to try and make the claim that there isn't fine-tuning. Again, this is in response to the first proposition, is the universe masterfully and immaculately made? And as we've said, there were people who then responded to what Stenger had to write, the most prominent being Luke Barnes, who wrote a lengthy critique of the arguments presented by Stenger. Now, the basic conclusion was that the probabilities of fine-tuning and the balancing act in the required manner are astronomically small compared to rival possibilities. This is something that Dawkins had referred to as well. So all Stenger was trying to ultimately attempt to prove was to minimize the possibilities that are not in the interest of the universe and to maximize the possibilities that are in its interest. I'm not going to repeat myself because we had covered this last week, so hopefully it should still be fresh in your minds. Then we looked at briefly, I don't think we actually went on to this point, but I'll quickly touch upon it before we go to the main discussion for today, which is the third objection for the proposition, the universe is masterfully and immaculately made. And that objection is that the element of fine-tuning is extremely minimal compared to the vast, wider universe. So the claim is, now, how can you claim, how is it accurate for us to say that the universe has been carefully and finely tuned when 99.9999999% of this world is empty and unsuitable for life? Now, this objection has been used by Christopher Hitchens, also Richard Dawkins. In one of his videos, he also makes the same claim, and various other people have tried to use that type of argument. And so the idea of fine-tuning means that the universe we are in has life, even in spite of the probabilities of the existence of many other universes that are unsuitable for life, even if as small as a microscopic speck in the house. So this is an extremely unique position to be in by the very admission of the physicists themselves. So again, the whole point is that by stating that 99.99% is not inhabitable for life doesn't prove the point of the fine-tuning argument. It still maintains the point that even though the universe that we live in, when you consider its unsuitability for life, for there still to be life itself demonstrates the fact that you have some kind of precision that's taking place. So the question here is not why there is a huge vacuum in the universe, as argued by some of the atheists, but rather why life can be found in the universe in spite of the massive probability of it being unsuitable or unattainable. How is it possible that we have life when you look at consider the universe, the whole universe gives the lack of probability of life? And so the fact that this level of fine-tuning exists, even irrespective of to what portion, the fact that it still exists, even if it is meager compared to the rest of the universe, it is sufficient to establish the required indication of the existence of God, right? So I hope you understand the argument and not be obviously some of the atheists are trying to miscaricature the actual argument that's being presented by focusing on the huge vacuum in the universe, but they're not dealing with the fact that you still have some level of fine-tuning that is taking place. Sorry about that. There was a bit of a... So this is a good way to kind of understand the whole point that I'm trying to make. And I've tried to put an image together, hopefully for you to understand the point. So the argument that they're trying to make is the same as it would be like a man ordering his children to organize and tidy up an extremely messy house, and then the person leaves. Now, when the person returns back to his house, he finds that a tiny part of the house has been tidied up. So let's imagine there's a whole house, is all untidy, but yet there's this one cupboard, right, where you can clearly see things have been put together and tidied up. Would it be possible to deny that this small part was not tidied by anyone, just because the rest of the house was still a disorganized mess, right? Hopefully that makes the argument clear. Even though the rest of the house is disorganized, the very fact that even in this small meager space, you find things put together in a tidied manner demonstrates the fact that there must have been someone who tidied this part of the house, irrespective of what you see in the remainder of the house. And so that's the same kind of argument that can be presented against that point. Secondly, the fact that we do not know the wisdom behind the expansive universe is not sufficient justification to relinquish our knowledge of the information on the existence of life in a minute part of this universe and overlooking it. In fact, some physicists have mentioned that some important data for the universe of life means that there is a need for this wide expanse. In other words, just because we don't have a clear explanation of the large vacuum within the universe with non-life doesn't mean that it doesn't have a purpose, and that it's possible that this expansive universe is necessary for the possibility of life to take place in this small part of the universe, right? So just because we don't have all of the data, and just because we don't know all of the wisdoms behind the expansive universe, it doesn't mean that there isn't a purpose behind it. And so long as there's a purpose behind it, then that is still not considered as useless or unnecessary. I hope you understand the argument, inshallah.
Unable to hear.
There seems to be some technical errors. Please wait for a couple of minutes, inshallah.
I was able to hear you. Alhamdulillah.
There seem to be some technical errors with Sheikh Imtiaz's connection. We are trying to settle it. Please wait.
Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, it seems we had a problem with the connection. Let me see if I can pull up the screen again. Apologies, just give me a couple of minutes whilst I sort this problem out.